Welcome to Business Influencers. Hope everyone is having a great week. We are so excited as always. Thank you so much for all the people that have tuned in each and every week as the show continues to grow. Again, we recently just went over 50 episodes this month, and we are so excited to keep now moving into the next year where we're going to continue to bring subject matter experts sharing their words of wisdom and insights, and more importantly, their experiences to take your business and personal success to the next level. Now, just note, we're not just about business, but we're also about experience, because a lot of times those life experiences can really teach us a lot of valuable things and how we can go about relating to others in business and also creating new opportunities as a result of that. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types, an opportunity to rekindle old relationships or perhaps meet new people for the first time. This is a great place where it takes all the noise out of social media, so you're not getting bombarded with all those notifications. Why? Because it is a membership program. Yes, you have to pay, but it's very modest fee that you pay each year to cut out all the noise. And again, you get access to a wide array of different services that you would normally not have available otherwise. Check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, I am so pleased to be talking about this topic today, keep moving the chains. And I had the opportunity and the gift to talk to this young man who I'm going to mention here shortly as he comes on to share his story with us, because it was so powerful, and how he overcame this challenge that most people would never experience in a lifetime, and how he was able to turn this into a blessing that continues to serve and give the gift of giving each and every day to others that he's inspired, not only in the business world, but just in life in general. And the person we're going to be talking to today is Mac McGinnis. And before I introduce Mac, I'm going to give you a little background from him. He's originally from Chicago, Illinois. He had lived in San Francisco and then recently moved to Austin, Texas. He went to the University of Missouri, graduated in 2016 with a degree in health sciences and a dual minor in business and psychology. He just turned 28 years old recently, this past August. He has 3 siblings, an older sister, 2 younger brothers, and about 78 cousins. Wow, all on one side of the family. Well, you're going to hear a powerful story from Mac here today. But before we do so, let's give it a warm welcome to Mac McGinnis. Mac, how you doing today?
Good, great. Thanks, Christopher. That was an amazing intro. I appreciate it. Thank you. How are you doing today?
Doing awesome. We are so blessed to have you here today, and thank you so much for being here. As I mentioned to the audience listening, those that will be listening later, you had an opportunity to share this powerful story with us. And when we talk about this theme, keep moving the chains, that life is going to happen regardless if we go with it or we resist it. It's going to go anyway. So it's either you're going to go with the flow, or it's going to whip you around, and there's no way you're going to stop it if you keep resisting it. I'd like you to kind of just open up, Mac, if you can, to kind of talk about this concept of keep moving the chains by sharing your story of like where you were prior to an incident that you went through, what you went through, and how this really changed your life for now, looking in hindsight for the better, that allowed you to keep moving the chains in your life, in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. So, when you asked me what I wanted to title the show, I said, keep moving the chains. And there's a reason behind that. Obviously, you mentioned the large family and everything. So I come from a long line of, football coaches, athletes, policemen, firemen. And one thing that we kind of keep in common in the McGinnis family is that, no matter how bad things are, as long as you face them head on, you give it 100%, everything, you just keep moving the chains. Turns out everything's going to be all right 9 times out of 10. So that's kind of where I got the idea from it. But to give a little context to the story, so it was about 2017. I was about 23 years old. I had just recently moved to San Francisco, California. I was working for an IT company down in San Jose, and a couple of my buddies had came to come visit. And so what we were planning on doing was attending a music festival up at Lake Tahoe during the winter called Snow Globe. So we headed up there a day early because we were super excited. It was like a 3-day festival. We had a Airbnb and everything, but we decided we wanted to go skiing and snowboarding. So we actually got up there a day early, and on the way up there, we noticed that there was a winter ice advisory. So we kind of figured the conditions would be a little slick, but then that night it snowed about 1.5 feet. So we kind of thought everything was going to be okay. So the next morning, typical morning, eat breakfast. We're at the mountain by 6 a.m., ready to get on the ski lift by 7. Get on the ski lift. We're the first people on the ski lift. We're so excited to be there. The views are amazing. The sun hasn't even come out behind the mountains yet. And so we're the first people to get to the top of the mountain. And, I've been skiing for several years prior to this. So it was nothing new to me. And the friends that I was with, both traveled. One lived in Colorado and the other one traveled to Colorado every year to go snowboarding. So we were like pretty experienced. So when we got to the top of the mountain, we figured it would be a good idea to go down the backside because we like to do the off the trail stuff. But we realized that it was chained off. And we just figured, there was that ice advisory. It probably wasn't that big of a deal, but let's go ahead and do it anyways. So we started going down the backside of the mountain, and it's about a 70-degree drop. It's a little insane. Some people would call it a little crazy, but as we're going down, everything's going fine. It's fresh powder, and we jump off this like small cliff, and I land, and I'm way ahead of my buddies, and I start going in and out of trees. Now, I mentioned that the sun had yet to come over to the top of the mountain, so it didn't melt any of the ice that was underneath the trees. And so what happened was I ended up turning to my right side to avoid a tree, and I went underneath it, and I actually ended up hitting the tree going about 45 miles an hour. Funny enough, I was wearing an Evel Knievel snowsuit, so it's pretty easy to spot. But the injuries I sustained were pretty substantial. I was not wearing a helmet, unfortunately. So I actually ended up fracturing my skull. I have a brachial plexus injury to my right side, which means that I tore the nerves from my spinal cord. So instantly my right arm was paralyzed. I broke my back in 3 spots. And I apologize if this is a little graphic, but I also—
Please, so don't hold back.
Okay, perfect. So I also broke every single rib. My ribs went through my lungs. So, my lungs were deflating. I hit the tree so hard that all my internal organs actually shifted to the left side. And after that happened, I still remember hitting the tree, and I remember getting up, and my adrenaline was pumping, and I knew I was in trouble, but I didn't know how bad it was. So I actually ended up putting my skis back on, and which I don't know how that happened, but it did. And I made it out to a clearing, and I turned around, and I just remember having trouble breathing, and I turn around and I see my buddies, and I remember the last thing I thought in my head was, okay, like, you can die now. And that was pretty much it for me. It was thankfully, actually, lucky enough, Ski Patrol was right behind us. They're in the chairlift right behind us. So they had actually followed us down because they probably knew that we were going to be in some sort of trouble. When my friends got up to me, I was barely breathing. When Ski Patrol got up to me, they checked my pulse. They cut open my bodysuit. My body was about 3 times the size it normally should have been. And they pretty much declared me dead. Now, while all that was going on, when we jumped off the cliff, we knocked a boulder loose, and the boulder was coming right for my head. And what happened was Ski Patrol said, he passed away. There's nothing we could do. Everyone get out of the way. We don't want anybody else getting hurt. Thankfully, one of my best friends took out his snow boot from the ski, stomped it in front of my head, and the boot actually hit off his ankle, injured his ankle pretty significantly. And then actually, as the boulder completely cleared my body, I regained consciousness. And I remember taking a big deep breath in, and I'm like, my name is McGinnis. I'm 23 years old. And I'm sure at this point I was like barely speaking, but Ski Patrol was like shocked. They didn't know what to do. So they ended up calling in a helicopter. A helicopter came in, picked me up, flew me about 15 minutes to Renown Hospital in Reno, Nevada, because that's the closest trauma center, pretty much, in Northern California. And from that point on, I was in a coma for about a month and a half. So they gave me a 1% chance to live. They said that if I did live, I'd probably have a 5% chance of ever moving my right arm again. And throughout the entire thing, it was very touch and go. I actually ended up dying 4 times on the table, which I'll get to in a second. But something pretty amazing happens when you're in a coma like that. You tend to, and I don't know if this is everyone's experience, but it was my experience for sure. You associate your dreams like with the people that are around you. So, I mentioned I died 4 times. Well, I had 4 different dreams, and we figured this out way later. But all those dreams were associated with the people that were in the room with me at the time. Because no matter like what time it was, any given day of the week, I had family, cousins, aunts, uncles, siblings, you name it, out there visiting me, staying with me, just keeping me company, even though I was asleep. But I heard their voices. And so I'd associate all these dreams with the people that were around me. And so every time I'd flatline and they'd bring me back, the dream would just end. And then a new dream would start. And the dreams would start the same exact way every time. I'd be laying on my back and I would sit up and I'd have to like figure out my surroundings and everything. Well, then it came time towards the beginning of the new year where they were pretty positive that I was going to die. I just flatlined for the 3rd time. And what happened was they basically came out to my family and they said, he's probably not going to make it. His lungs are deflated. He's got pneumonia in both lungs. He's probably going to pass away around midnight. So, I was raised Catholic, and my family actually was all there. And what they did was they reached out to the priest that baptized me, and he actually read me my last rites over the phone. And so sure enough, at like 11:59 or something like that, something pretty close to that, I flatlined for the last time. And I mean, while all this was going on, my family was there talking to the nurses every single day, getting them coffee. So like at this point, the nurses were family. And there was this one nurse that, just in her mind, just stuck out to her. She's like, this is not how this is supposed to end. There's no way that this is supposed to like end like this. So unbeknownst to the doctor, she went in there and she ended up paddling me around 27 times until she finally got a heartbeat. And the doctor scolded her for it, said that she was prolonging the inevitable. And at this point, it was kind of, not morally correct to go about the way that she was doing things. But she had been doing her research on the back end, and she actually found a medical journal from 2012, I believe it was, from some person in Miami that got into a motorcycle accident that had very similar, respiratory issues and everything like that. And she figured out that there's a surgery that could be done that take about 12 hours. And it's where they would flip me over during certain hours of the night, because what's happening was I was drowning from the inside out. There was no way to get the liquid out of my lungs, which sounds like a terrible way to go. And I'm
drowning is awful.
Sure glad that didn't happen. So she brought it to the attention of the doctor, and the doctor was like, I've never done this surgery. I've never heard of it. I'm not going to do it. And she was so hell-bent on saving my life that she said right then and there, she goes, if you don't do this, I will quit. And this is Renown Hospital, Reno, Nevada. So shout out to B. That nurse is amazing. She actually ended up convincing the doctor, because they were already short staffed, and if she quit, it would be a lot of trouble for a lot of people. So the doctor finally gave in, and he goes, you have to read this medical journal while we're in surgery, because I don't know what I'm doing. And she goes, that's fine, I can totally do that. So as they're doing the surgery, everything is going according to plan. I think I flatlined one more time, but she was able to bring me back again. And at about hour 6, about halfway through the surgery, she came in and as she was reading the medical journal, realized that she had to pay for the rest of the medical journal that she was reading. So she didn't even read all the way through it. And it was a long shot. And she ended up running out of the emergency room, ran to her locker, grabbed her credit card, scrubbed back in, came in, paid for the rest of the medical journal, and ended up saving my life. And after that happened, the following 2 days after, my chances went from 1% to making it to being alive to 25. And then the next day it was 50. And then the day after that, it was 75. And while that was going on, my family was, super happy, and everything seemed like it was going to be working out. And so then came to the day where they were going to wake me up out of the coma, because I was on fentanyl, morphine, and Dilaudid to keep me in a medically induced coma. But one thing I want to touch back on is when I flatlined for the last time. You know how I mentioned every dream that I had was associated with somebody around me?
Yeah.
So the last dream I had, I actually woke up on a beach, and this was all brand new. This was new to me. This isn't what I was used to dreaming about. And I look to my right and I don't see anybody. And I look to my left, and about 100 yards away, there's a lady standing right where the water meets the sand. And she's standing underneath the palm tree, the only tree on the island like that I can remember. And she's standing underneath the shade. And I look at it and I go, that's weird. Teal hat, teal dress. I've seen this before. I just can't put my finger on it. I don't know where I've seen this. And then so I get up, I wipe the sand off my shoulders and my elbows, and this is how well I remember this. And I start walking to her, and as I'm getting closer, I'm like, teal hat, teal dress. I've seen this before. And as I get about 20 yards away, I go, oh my God, that's my grandma Jean that died about 10 years ago, prior to the accident. So I get up to her and I grab her elbow and I go, Grandma Jean. And she turns to me and she smiles. She doesn't say a word. She's just got one tear going down her eye. She puts her arm on my shoulder and she goes, Mac, it's time for you to wake up. You got to go back. And since I was on all these drugs, they told my family that it would take roughly around 72 hours for me to wake up, or, even realize that I'm alive. So they actually send my family back to Chicago so they could regroup. And they're like, by the time you get back to Reno, he'll be awake and you'll be able to talk to him. But I had ventilators coming out of my neck, so I couldn't talk or anything like that. But it was a step in the right direction. So my family goes to Reno Regional Airport, and about 2 hours later, right before their flight, they get a call from actually the nurse's husband at the time that I'd waken up. And I woke up 2 hours after they initially started the process of waking me up, which they have never seen anything like that before. And I also wanted to be known that the medical journal that the nurse found, she actually, that medical practice is called putting people in the prone position. And I think I was one of the first patients in the United States to get it done since 2012. And now it's actually the most common practice for COVID patients in the United States and in the world. And it's been saving lives ever since. So that's
powerful.
Just another amazing part. Yeah. And I remember when I woke up, I had the news on in my room. There was, endless cards. There was a GoFundMe and all that stuff, all that good stuff. Over 2,000 people donated, people that I don't even know, which was absolutely amazing. And then I remember opening up my eyes and having a button in my left hand. I kicked my legs first because I was like, all right, you can kick your legs. You can move them, so you're fine. I look to my right hand. I go, all right, that's not moving, but we'll worry about that later. And then there's a button in my left hand. So before I press the button, the news guy goes, yeah, it's January 21st, 2018. So I woke up in a new year. And I was like, all right, well, last time I remember it was December 27th, 2017. So it's been some time. And then I hit the button and this nurse comes flying in and he's just screaming, Mac, you're awake, you're awake. And all I remember is thinking, I'm awake, but I kind of got a really bad headache. So can you lower your voice? But obviously I couldn't say that. And I don't think that's something I would say. But then obviously after that, it was a long road to recovery. One of the hardest parts was them actually taking out the breathing tube because they only had one speech pathologist, I believe is their title, where when they take out a breathing tube, you're left with a scar and a hole in your neck essentially, and they need to put it in a piece. So what happened was they took out the tube and she made this, she 3D printed this piece so I'd be able to talk. But before that, I had to breathe on my own for 12 hours. So I did that, which was incredibly hard, just staring at the ceiling, not being able to talk, not being able to drink, just focusing on purely on breathing. And she only works 1 day a week. So if this didn't work, I wasn't going to be able to talk for another week, and then I'd have to do the same process over again. So she puts in the piece, and sure enough, it doesn't fit. I start turning blue in the face, and they're like, all right, enough. He's got to go back on the ventilator. So I'm obviously frustrated, but I can't talk, and my family doesn't really know like what expressions I'm, trying to, put out there or anything like that. So, oddly enough, she comes in the next day and she goes, my husband's a speech pathologist, and I couldn't get this out of my brain, and we talked about it all night. And she's like, I ended up making a totally new piece. She comes in the next morning and she goes, let's give it a shot. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. So they put it in, my entire family sitting in the room, and you could just feel like the amount of stress because they don't know if I have brain damage or anything like that. And she puts in the piece and she goes, say, ah. And I go, ah. And part of my French here, I go, holy shit, I can talk. And at that moment, you could just feel the biggest sigh of relief coming out of my family, out of the doctors, everybody in the room. And my dad looked at me and he goes, yeah, that's our son. He's back to normal. And then after that, it was just a matter of, learning how to walk again, which another thing I got incredibly lucky by was that my uncle actually had dated a lady that was now living in San Francisco. And she was like the director of Sutter Health Hospital in San Francisco, where they specialize in, trauma patients and everything like that. And she found my story out through Facebook, hadn't talked to my uncle since high school. And she reached out and was like, hey, we got a bed for him. Like, get him down here. We'll teach him how to walk again, and everything. So that was just another fortunate part of this entire story that, at the end of the day, it was all about moving the chains. My uncle likes to reference the Challenger, I think it was the Apollo 13 or the Challenger 13. I can't remember which one, the name of the spacecraft, but he was like, if you look at it, they needed a million things to go right, and they were on step one. And I looked at it like the same way, everything was going on with me. I had the same mindset. I need a million things to go right, and I'm on step one. But just because I'm on step one doesn't mean I'm not going to get to that millionth step. And I know I'm still not at that millionth step, but it's all about the journey. And someone also said to me, everyone's got two lives, but the second one begins when you realize you only got one.
Yeah.
And, that's an incredibly powerful message. And so, I figured coming on this show and, sharing the story and being able to, I'm 28 years old now. I work full time. I've worked at 3 different companies so far. I've moved around a bunch. I'm thankful that every single day I wake up, I get to see the sun shining. And no matter how bad my day is, I know that tomorrow's going to start. And I'm going to be there to see that sunrise, and I'm going to be there to see it set. And there's nothing that's really going to be able to stop me from doing that. And so, I guess the main point of this whole message, to bring this whole thing home, is just that if, it doesn't necessarily, I don't want people to look at me and, be like, you went through, it's amazing, you got through all these challenges and all that stuff. But I didn't do it alone. I had, an amazing support system, and it took me a long time to realize that I wasn't in it alone. And I was reminded of it constantly, but, it feels like, there's weight on your shoulders, and you stop doing things for yourself and you start doing things for other people. And that's really what I want to convey here. And, even though everybody is going to have dark times, and, you might not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, just know that the light is at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes you got to stare in the darkness to get to it. And that's what it's all about. And that's how you keep moving the chains. You just put one foot in front of the other and you keep on moving.
Well, Mac, I can't thank you enough. Your story is so moving and so powerful, and such a gift and a blessing that you can give to other people that maybe have not gone through what you went through, but now they can see that, my life isn't as bad as I thought. I mean, you've turned something that you could, you've almost died 4 times as a result of it. You became a medical textbook case as a result of it. And it's your humbleness and your gratitude and your appreciation for the little things in life that really keep moving the chains forward. And no matter what happens in business, in our economy, in our personal lives, our well-being, there are going to be things that we can control and things that we cannot control. And you found a way to focus on the things that you can and go with the flow and adapt to what you have to do to make something out of your life. I can't thank you enough for being, gracious us here, sharing your powerful story with us. Thank you.
Absolutely, Christopher. And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor, and I'm excited to share this story with other people. And if anybody would like to reach out to me, my LinkedIn's on, it's Mac McGinnis. I'm on LinkedIn. And then also I could be found through my Gmail, which is jmcginnis84@gmail.com. So if anybody listening to this wants to reach out, I'm always open to have a discussion, always here to, you'd rather be the person everybody leans on than, be the person that sits in the corner and wallows. So I chose to be the rock, and I'm going to continue to be that.
Well, you are moving the change. You're a prime example, and thank you. Continue to keep being the example and to be a resource to inspire people to do the same. Thank you so much, Mac, for being here. And we highly encourage everybody, get to know Mac. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. Reach out to him at his Gmail address. And again, if any of you are in a company, an event, or a charity event, whatever that may be, get to know Mac. His story can really help move the chains, not only with your audience, but also make an impact for people actually to do something in their lives so that they actually walk away with something as a result of that. Reach out to Mac. We highly encourage it and we endorse it. And again, thank you so much, listeners, for joining us here at Business Influencers. Again, we are so grateful for everything where the show is going, and we will continue to bring in people like Mac in that operate from core values and share from the heart and from their experience, helping you to do the same and whatever that means to you. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.